Welcome to Inside the Firm. I'm your host, Alex Gore. I'm here with our other host,
Lance Cayko.
We are here to talk about how to start, run, and grow a business. We run an architecture firm. We're developers, and we run some online business. So we're here to give you an inside look into our firm. Lance, kick us off. What are we talking about?
Extreme ownership.
Hey, where does that come from?
Mr. Jocko, the Jocko podcast.
So everyone at the firm's been making fun of me because I love Jocko podcast and Jocko Willink. And so we have a Spotify going, and I've even put him on our Spotify. So there's a whole bunch of songs, and then Jocko will pop on and just scare everyone. He's a former Navy SEAL, wrote the book Extreme Ownership, which I think is what you're going to talk about. That's
exactly.
the name of it.
And so have you read the book? That's what I was wondering.
Chapter 2. I'm on chapter 2.
Oh, okay. So you bought the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, so he has a podcast. I listened to it. It is
100 episodes maybe so far? Is that what
87.
Okay.
And I went back, I listened to one, and then this is the first one I'm starting at 0. So now I'm on episode 33, and it is leadership lessons from him, but he starts by reviewing a book. And these books are all about war, so it gets dark quick. It is hard to take. It is emotionally tolling sometimes.
Yeah, and
anyways,
Alex has his version of like a military guy that he listens to,
yeah.
And so that's Jocko, as you just mentioned. Mine is Jason Stapleton, the Jason Stapleton program, and they're similar in both of like their mantras of like self-discipline and then taking ownership of what you do and implementing that in your life and how discipline equals freedom. Right?
Yes, I have that shirt.
Took that, and that's from Jocko, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So the reason why I bring up that is, yes, we've been giving Alex crap, but it is a good podcast, and it's obviously a popular one too, and there's something to be said about taking extreme ownership. So I have 2 stories to tell. One story is of my son and him taking extreme ownership. Yes. So my son, Alex knows him. We actually call Al Uncle Al. My stepkids even asked, I was like, is Al really your brother? I'm like, no, we just call him Uncle Al.
Yeah.
It's just his name.
Yep.
So, but he's my oldest biological son has basically grown up with Al sort of being, an uncle / like kind of a father figure, right? And so Alex would attest to that my son has this, he'll start telling a story and it just gets out of control. And to the point where like him turning into an adolescent person, there's been like a tipping point of, okay, what is truth, or what is a story versus like what is truth, right? And so for the last year, one thing I've been trying to get across to him is that it's better for you to just tell the truth if you screw up, because we all know, like if you're an adult who is reasonable and you understand that humans are not infallible and they make mistakes, you want to hear the truth. You want to hear, even if somebody screwed up and everything, just to take ownership of it. And in that way, I think it's harder for you to then all of a sudden you trust them, and then you see somebody take ownership of the problem and what they've caused or not. So
and just to go in on that, because I used to live in the same apartment complex as Lance, so Kyler would come up all the time, and you can tell with a kid when they're fibbing because you're an adult, so you know that there wasn't ghosts and aliens at the school and you didn't shoot them down with a laser, right?
Yeah. Literally, remember one of the apartment buildings was haunted.
Yeah. Yep.
Or one of the apartments in the apartment building.
And what I think what he's now come to understand through Lance teaching him and is that everyone has a BS detector. So with kids, it's obviously easy, right? But even you as an adult, what you should know is Lance has a BS detector on me. I have a BS detector on him, and on contractors, everyone that comes in. If you think that you're pulling something, you are probably not pulling it whatsoever. Yeah. We are sophisticated. Not me and you. I mean, people in general are sophisticated BS detectors.
Yeah. Yeah. So last year, and this was the point of the Kyler part of the story was Kyler brought 2 knives to school, and the little capitalist in him that he gets from his dad, he was literally just going to sell the knives to a kid, and he tried to because he wanted to make extra money.
No problem with that.
And so he gave the knives to the kid. The kid went home, and then he brought him back to school, and then was showing him off the next day. Well, the teacher, obviously, it's a huge red flag. Everybody understands the kind of society we live in today. So they both, the kid who brought the knives back into school got pulled into the principal's office, and then Kyler, the other kid said, "Oh yeah, Kyler gave him to me." Kyler brought him in, then Kyler got pulled in, and instantly Kyler didn't try to lie or anything like that. And it was one of the first times where he's kind of just like There's no fibbing. He just took complete ownership. So then I went in, later on, and his mother and I went in and had a meeting with the principal. And the principal, first thing he says is, I just want to commend you guys. I don't know what you guys are getting through to his head, but for Kyler to just instantly fess up and cut and dry and just say, yep, I brought him in. I wanted to sell him. That was my intent. Yep. He's like, it cleared the air immediately. And then for me as a parent,
because you're going to find out anyways.
Eventually, the lie is going to unravel. Like, you can't hide behind these things your whole life.
Yep. And that's true with, I think, the business example that you're going to get to.
Exactly.
Is the truth is going to come out. It's
no
just
matter
how
what.
hard it was and how emotionally tolling and taxing and stressful it is.
Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
It's not.
I don't think it is. So even though you think you're going to avoid something. So then for me to punish Kyler, was I angry? Yep. But man, just because I was more proud of him just owning the problem and saying it. He was grounded for a week, and it was enough of him to be suspended from school for a whole week. That was kind of like, okay, well, he got his suspension from school. He got embarrassed, but the bigger lesson was, finally, it got through to me and him, especially him. Take ownership of what the heck you're doing. So that's sort of my personal story, and then the professional one is. I mentioned this in the last podcast 2 weeks ago, by the way, since I just got back to everything, is a foundation on one of our custom houses got poured 8 inches, 8-inch difference, right? And at first it wasn't a big deal in the sense that the client, we didn't everything was sort of me just trying to get out for vacation and stuff. But over the past 2 weeks, it's completely unraveled itself. And there's been a lot of finger pointing. And the finger pointing is coming from the contractor not wanting to just fess up, hey, my subcontractor screwed up. They read the drawings wrong. And so I get a kind of a frantic call from the client. And I've never had this call before, wanting them to, hey, I need you to back me up. I need you to be on my side, because they go, look, we've read the drawings. We can see what the height is called out, and they won't take ownership of it. So what it's resulted in is the client has completely lost trust in the contractor. When in the end, I have this client coming back and telling me, if they would have just told the truth and owned up to the problem, the mistake they made from the beginning, there would have been any trust lost. And all of a sudden, it's kind of gotten to this breaking point.
Yep. And I think they could have done it in the way of saying, hey, we messed up. Here's why. And it's not an excuse, but I think people understand, especially if you show them the drawings and and then what's happening in the real world. This is houses, especially these are large houses. They're very sophisticated. Like the client would be like, man, I could see that looks difficult.
In my opinion, they're more custom homes are like more sophisticated than some small commercial easy prefab build.
Yes. And I think I've actually talked to other architects that agree. Everything has its nuances.
Yep. So my lesson is just to reiterate once again, I think whether you're an architect, even if you're an owner or a contractor or anybody who's running a business, just own up to it. As soon as you can identify if it is your mistake, your problem, I think you own up to it, you apologize, and you say, here's how we're going to fix it, and then you run head on towards the solution.
Yeah.
Can't stress that part enough.
I think that's great. Okay. The next thing I have going on to that is, remember when we were talking about me and you, we've always been thinking about expanding. If you have a firm, you think about growing, and we go, okay, maybe in a couple years, this person or this person might be promoted to a leadership position, and we might have to offer them this or this, and we started thinking in the future. Well, that got my brain ticking, and I that night I was like, holy cow, okay, if we are going to promote someone, it would be great to set up expectations. So just like when these guys came into the firms, we sat them all down. This is F9's philosophy. This is F9's resources. This is how we do stuff. So I thought, man, if they're going to be not instantly promoted, wouldn't it be great then to sit them down and then say the same thing? Now in your new role, this is what you have to do. So I started writing that down. And then a couple days ago, I started listening to Cayko. It's the episode called Boots. I don't know if it's 33 or 34 or 38 or whatever. And it goes back to kids. So he said he took his kids on a ruck march.
A ruck march.
Yeah. And Cayko he has
tell people who don't know what that is. What is a ruck march?
It's a hike.
Yep. But you put on a rucksack.
Yeah. Yep. Put on a rucksack. So in the Army, they call it ruck march. It's because you're going from point to point. But in the civilian world, it's a hike. So in reality, he took his kids on a hike, but he
called it
a rock. And he doesn't call it a camp. He calls it
Does he call dinner chow?
Yeah. Well,
chow.
And they don't set up camp. They have layup points.
Okay.
So, and he won't let his kids call it a camp. And he goes, when I was doing this with my kids, he goes, it just hit me. It just hit me. These fundamental leadership principles that I do that I don't even realize that I do. And it goes back with you with the kid story. And what he said is, every time you have a ruck march, you sit down your team and you say, because there's a couple ways to do ruck marches. One is like as the bird flies. So it's called direct line. You basically have a point and you just go there. The problem is you're going through streams. Like, it's just shitty, right? So what you really do is you do a map study. You figure out where you're going to go. And you sit everyone down and you go, okay, once we get to this stream, we're going to take a left. Once we get to that hill, we're going to take a right. We're going to see an opening. We're going to go here. Everyone knows, right? He goes, because the opposite, and this has happened to me, night marches, right? And this is more basic training when you have a bunch of people. We're going somewhere, right? Stopping point, right? Fist up. Everyone relays it. Everyone gets down. One, I don't know if we're stopping because like, oh, there's the hill. They're probably looking at the map. We're going to take a right. Or are we getting attacked? Like,
are the Viet Cong around us?
Is someone like, should I be prepared for an attack? Like what is going on here? And then also, are we 1 mile away from our destination? Are we 10 miles away? I would have no idea. Like, so you can see how that's kind of would be crazy. So when I wrote this down, and my idea that I'm proposing to you, this whole inside the firm, letting everyone know is like, should we sit everyone down and let them know what we expect for you to become a leader in this firm? So that they can then say like, oh, if I do these things, if I have this map in my head, that's what's going to lead to progression. So this is my list of things that you need to be that I literally just at my computer just jotted down, and it will be adapted and updated.
Okay.
Right? So first thing, and this goes for everyone who's at our firm is trying to do this. You have to master the fundamentals, right? So point 1 and point 2. Competency and then communication. So whatever, if you're doing a townhome, you have to be competent. If you're doing a custom home and they're different, you have to be competent. If you're doing in our firm, people have different tasks, right?
Mm-hmm,
so if you want to be a leader in that task, you need to be competent. Just because, let's say you get promoted and all of a sudden we're doing assisted living, but you've been doing townhomes, that doesn't mean that you're going to be the leader in assisted living, right? And then communication, we talked about, is always key, right? You have to be able to respond to clients. You need to be you need to respond completely, thoroughly. You need to be able to see the future, all that stuff. Okay. Second thing is leading. You need to have high expectations and high standards, right? And this is going to lead into, if we have time, I want to talk about my employee review and how we're kind of building up to this. High expectations and standards, meaning like things have to come out perfect. Like when you're reviewing in Redline, you need to realize like that we can't have 8 inches missed on a foundation, right? Positive attitude, because I think a negative is just going to spiral everyone down. Mm-hmm. And then purpose. And I mean purpose in 2 different ways. So my purpose here, and you have the same purpose, you talked about it. I don't know if we have a formal philosophy, but it's useful architecture. That's also beautiful.
Yes.
Right? So everything from, think about the tiny houses where there's useful and purposes, to just a really good laid out floor plan that people can navigate to, all that turns out to be beautiful. But I think me and you we think, okay, what's the useful thing first? And we have enough skills to make it beautiful.
Yeah.
And then...
I don't think we start from beauty first at all. No. I mean... I think a graceful floor plan always helps, right? Yeah. I mean, that if you have a good set of bones, you can add the cake decoration and stuff like that. It just permeates through.
But then I think too, if we do start with beauty, because I can see that happening, I think our filter then is which parts of this are useful or not, and that will dictate what happens.
Yeah.
So I think you can start in the opposite too, because that's how the commercial building that we all designed. I think yeah, exactly. I think our development project, we actually started in the beauty direction. There you go. So I take back what I said. And then, I sort of, I've had it for the last 2 weeks, and I've been working on it, and I've been shaking out the structural parts of it and stuff like that. And it's sort of now, architecture needs to catch up with the structure and the function and all of that stuff. But if you start with beauty first, I don't think it works if you don't have in your philosophy useful also.
True.
Because you just go willy-nilly, right? And then my other thing for me, and I know it is for you too, one of my purpose is just providing for my kids and family. Like that is huge for both of us because we both went through the recession and we both knew what lean times really were. So there needs to be that fire under you that's, that's pushing you to have high expectations and positive attitudes and all that. Then I went to the next headline is delegation because I think this is key. I think you're the best at it. I think I'm the second best, right? So when you're giving something, because if you're going to be a leader, you might have people under you. That's why you're getting a raise.
No. If you are a leader, you're going to have people underneath you.
Yes.
If not under with you, but they're going to be on your little team.
Exactly. Whenever you're delegating something, you need to set expectations. And that means you need to outline what's going to happen, redline it. If it's possible, give them examples. Like here's an example to pull from, and then walk them through the red lines, talk it. Every time you need to do that, right? And then the second thing is before anything goes out the door, you need to review it.
You need to review it.
No
matter how much you want to get it out the door, no matter how much the client is pressing you, where are my drawings, where are my drawings, where are my drawings?
Yep.
Just take 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah. So
because the littlest thing, I swear to God, that lately the littlest thing, if we miss the littlest thing on drawings, it just explodes.
Yeah.
People, I don't know. I don't know if they expect perfection or if we relay to them that we're going to be perfect. But man, you miss one little thing and it's important to them. It could end up in the phone call like I got the other day. Maybe you've lost interest in this project. No, settle down.
Yep. And then I think that's one level and that leadership. And then here's the second level is initiating growth in the firm, right? So that might be another tier, or that might actually be like a partner level.
Well, I think exactly. We're talking junior partner, /partner.
And what I would tell them about that is that, okay, now this goes to selling and then billing and finances. So selling, and we've already talked about this, so I'll go over it extremely fast. Engage a system, set up a system. Are you managing house, Angie's List, emails, website? How are you getting it personal? Are you going to meetings? Are you calling? Maybe we're going into commercial and you're calling all the school superintendents.
Yep.
You need a system, right? Respond quickly, and then create a template. Okay, what are your responses? You have a meeting template. You have a proposal template. All that stuff set up, and then 2 is then you're in charge of billing too. So you're in charge. You're in charge of the budget that you're setting because I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that point should really be in both sections, right?
Yeah.
I get bringing in work and being a partner, but I still think if you're going to be in a leadership role in our firm, then we need you because if you're managing resources, aka other people and billable hours. It should be on both. That's really the only thing I would change up to this point.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, because someone might ask, okay, how long should this task take? Because you don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. So I think sometime we should lay that out.
This is fantastic. This is a great start. Yeah, for sure. I was actually telling my wife about this sort of part of I'm really interested to hear the feedback from people. Once we get somebody in that role, where okay, you're actually a project manager. Because you have an intern or 2 or designer working on your team, and really at the end of the day, we aren't touching it except for maybe one or 2 questions a week. Maybe we're meeting with that project manager for 10 minutes, something very small, right? I'm interested to see what their feedback is to us once they see numbers. Of does it make them think okay, do you need more money? Are you satisfied with the compensation you're getting? Should we be increasing fees? Because you and I have had these numbers right up to our nose for how many years, right? And yes, we recognize when on some projects we're man, we should have added 10% under that contract, to make it work, right? And with a Master Suite edition, well, I've kind of got my number down. I know what it takes to do. We don't really lose any money on them anymore. Yeah. But I'm interested to see once somebody else is in a management role, what their feedback is on those 2 fronts, and then how do you and I adapt and morph based on that to keep everybody happy, healthy, doing what they want to do, fired up. And I don't want it to, because aren't you worried a little bit about okay, does it turn them off? Do they see that and go well, why am I doing this? Where's all the money going, and where's it not going? You know what I mean? You're just you're peeling back the onion.
I think it goes back to basically, the conversation I had was a person that works for a developer, and the developer was setting up high expectations for these other people, and basically saying like, why aren't you killing yourself? Why aren't you managing all this? Why aren't you have your head wrapped around these 4 or 5 things? And he said, well, he didn't tell the boss this, but because we aren't getting the financial reward that you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if we're working 60, 80 hours and doing all this and getting in stress and craziness, but getting paid the same. So I think even though that what I just said should be laid out, there should be a monetary increase, right? In that, meaning our roles might only be for your first year. We might just be getting the work and then sitting in on the first 3 meetings.
Yes.
And we're gone.
And then we're gone.
Right. And then that ups your pay. And then when you're bringing in the work, then you're at that junior partner level. And we might, be there obviously in the beginning, the first couple of times, but you're getting a share of the pie because I don't think there's.
And I'm okay with that, giving that share of the pie. All I'm saying is, thinking ahead, projecting ahead, like, that's going to be interesting. And I want that kind of feedback. So that maybe that'd be one other thing I would include is like, look, you're gonna see the books and how they work now more than you have before. And it's not like people don't have access to see like how much total contracts are for, and they hear numbers thrown out in the but they're not billing, they're not seeing other expenses and stuff like that. So maybe that's even another additional thing. It's like, okay, then you need to be aware of like expenses, and maybe it's another incentive, like I was telling you, which is a surprise to you. Like, oh, Alex is hopefully soon to be licensed. Our insurance is going to go down. So do you see how like it's a benefit not only for you yourself, project manager, to get licensed, but like it's a benefit to the firm. We recognize that we're not blind.
Yep. Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
Yeah. I don't know about total open book. I don't know how I feel about that. There's a firm in Boulder that I interviewed with that did total open books, and I don't know.
What's weird is that I think the first step would just be, here's our billable rate and here's our multiple. Like every person has a multiple, and this is industry standard. And it's hard to, your multiple is three times. So and actually firms have bigger multiples than us, because if you're paying someone $20 an hour, that should be 60. We bill at 65. A lot of people bill minimum at 75, 85, 95, and they only pay $20 an hour.
Yeah.
So the multiple, it's crazy because then they'll learn in a management role, this preparing the bill, that was all non-billable. Mm-hmm. All this other non-billable, all this equipment, all this insurance, everything just adds up so fast. And that's hard because if they just see the 3 times and think like, what's going on here, man.
I got a question for you. This is on the fly.
Yep.
So you took your second to last architecture test yesterday. Yeah. You're going to take one more tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And then hopefully you're done. Okay?
Yeah. Well, no. It's a 50% pass rate. And multiple people on the forums have failed multiple times.
Yeah, because it's the new version. It's ARE 5.0, right?
Yeah, 5.0.
So I know that's taken a lot of your time, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of your weekends now for a big part of it. Like even, today I think you're studying a little bit. Yesterday was kind of
not today, but yesterday, tomorrow morning I'll study.
Tomorrow you'll be studying, right? Yeah. And I remember what I was like. I did the same stuff. Weekends, every single morning before I got up.
Exactly.
All that kind of stuff. Same thing applies for like when I took the contractor's test. I mean, it was delegating all the work and then studying reading through that whole stupid IBC book, right?
Yeah.
So where I want to be, and I want to know where you want to be, is where do you think we should be at billable percentage-wise? 50%? That's where I want to get back to. I think we should be half the time we got to be billable.
I think half the time is a good number. I've heard for principals it's from 50 to 25%.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. 25 to 50. That's why your billable rate's higher.
Yeah, and it has. It's just managing.
But do you think you'll be there after that? Back to it's Sunday morning. I'm sitting here, or Saturday morning. I'm watching football, and then I'm doing work, just kind of getting ahead for the week. And that's another thing for me. It's like been landscaping the hell out of this yard, getting ready for his freaking wedding.
Yeah, I've moved twice.
You moved twice. That was a whole thing, right? You had to get the house ready. You had to get the new house ready.
Yep.
Right. I feel like I'm back to the place where I can be. My weekends are back, and my Sunday morning or Saturday morning can be, okay, I'm getting ahead of everybody, getting everything set up for the week.
Yep.
Getting my emails all set up through Yesware. By the way, I totally recommend that piece of software because I don't know if you noticed, like,
because you send in
it'd be
future.
like 12 in the morning. It would be like 12 in a row right away because I was 8 hours ahead of you guys.
Yeah.
So I would be a day ahead of you guys, and then I would just delegate like 12 to 24 emails out to everybody I needed to, and they'd all send at like 8 a.m.
Yep.
Awesome piece of software.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I honestly hope that's where it'll be. And then, I don't know. It just, I really want these to be over, but I also don't. And I have this weird feeling.
What?
I have this weird feeling. But this is why I was sad because, and I figured, I was like, why am I sad? Because because I get the questions. I get where they're going. I get, I get the system for the solution, and I'm getting good at it. And they say, why do some people like to perform in front of crowds and some don't? And the main factor is if you're good at it or not. If you're good at it, you want to play tennis in front of Wimbledon because you want to show off. If you're bad at it, you don't want to play in front of people.
Yeah.
Show that you're bad. So I'm getting good at this. So I'm like, I kind of want to do more.
Oh, I did not have that feeling whatsoever.
Yeah.
God, I got ulcers, just so everybody knows. I think around my 5th test, I started to get ulcers. But the main reason was because, like, I'm just a control freak. So for me to, like, have to agonize for 3 or 4 days until I found out the test, about the answers, and just having so little control over the process.
My eyes
destroyed me.
Oops, my eyes are going. Because
going what?
Like just shot. Because it's so much. Because it's in the morning. I get here at about 6, study till work, and then at night, and then also at night, like I have a baby, and the baby gets up, and so like anytime I can look out a window or readjust my eyes or whatever, my eyes are going. Just because of all this.
You see how much glass I put in the new office building?
Yeah, thank you.
A lot. That's for you.
Yeah, thanks.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think this is an excellent list. I want to recap that. I mean, not recap it, but
review.
We should revisit it, review it, because I'm convinced by the end of next year, I think we'll be at that point to where, okay, it's time to put somebody for the first time at this firm in a project management position where they have at least one person working with them, maybe 2 people. Something like that.
Yep. So that segues into if you're not ready to promote or you have a small firm or something like that, how do you groom people to be competent and to have that have those fundamental skills? So I did a 3-month review while you were gone, and it was about a week off, but there was things I was noticing that it's like, we might as well catch this right now. Why wait for 6 months? Why wait a week for another one? It was perfect timing. I had everything written out. So I said, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's talk about this, right? So, and I think this structure or just these points can be useful to anyone because, well, I started off and said, hey, we're doing the formal review. Obviously, it's for the company, but you should know that it's also for you, right? Because whether you stay here or not, what I'm going to tell you today hopefully will improve your life, right? And F9 is no one without everyone here.
True.
So you getting better is helping that other person out, and I name people at that firm. That other person getting better is helping you out, right? So it's all just about us individual people trying to get better, right? And I said, I'm going to list a couple points, but there's going to be one thing that I want to stick in your head for the next 3 to 9 months, before your 1 year comes out. And that is all these relate to one concept. And the concept is I want you to be brilliant at the basics.
Yes.
That's all I want you to do is be brilliant at the basics.
What a fundamental concept that gets overlooked, right?
Yep.
If you gotta, it's just like a basketball player, right? I mean, you have to, like, if you don't get brilliant at dribbling and not traveling, how are you going to be able to do anything else? How are you going to be able to do anything else? You can't, right?
Right.
You have to get brilliant at walking. Otherwise, you can't freaking run.
But back to Cayko podcast. A ruck march, planning, telling it, looking at the map, telling everyone. That's basic. Guess how many people don't outlay the future for their employees? A lot. Us. Us. How many people are lost? Like, oh, I kind of know my job. I know where I'm going, but I can only see a week ahead.
Yeah.
I can, you're in the dark.
Yeah.
So my points that I brought up were, because I thought these were big, understand the purpose of drawings. So I gave an example. We were going to a meeting. I asked for this drawing. gave me that drawing, but it didn't have the dimension I want and it didn't have the view I want. So I said, hey, for this meeting, we are talking about this. So if I'm looking for that, like that needs to be on the drawing, that needs to be in the meeting. And this goes in overall to just what is the purpose of what you're doing, right? What's the purpose for architects of every sheet that you're doing? Is it showing the elevations? Is it showing the materials? Do you have that information then? Do you just have, because I remember seeing sets, no offense, California, from one of these California firms. and it could be anyone. We just do a lot of work with California because there's some sort of connection. Where you remember seeing the sets where there's 50 sheets and I'm like, what is the purpose of this section? There's no information there. There's barely like a height. Why is this even here?
It's literally a rectangle that's showing, let's say it's an interior elevation. It's a rectangle showing the wall.
Yep.
It's just showing a wall.
And these were sets that were basically complete too. So it made no sense to me, right? So if that's in, I don't even know I can't even pretend what other people do in their job. Excel spreadsheets?
Well, my latest one has been site plans. I've been trying to pound this into our guys' heads. It's like, hey, the site plan, the architectural site plan is no good to anybody. If we aren't cutting through the building and we aren't showing what the measurement is from the corner of the four outermost corners to the property line, so they can figure out where they're going to site it, where they can put their batter boards in, right?
Yep. Point 2 was use examples liberally. So we're doing a big project. We've done one just like it. And there was some things that we were wasting time on not getting them right. And that was my example, but it goes to the bigger purpose of, haven't you heard stand on the shoulders of giants? Mm-hmm. And not that anyone is giant here, but if you have those examples, why? I think in design, you can reinvent the wheel. That's fine. But 90% of your time, you're not reinventing the wheel. Right? You're tweaking the wheel. You're adjusting the wheel. Think about artists too with songs. How
about meme makers? Honestly, some of the best memes online that you see that are going viral. And by the way, they're starting to pay people to make these things. I'm not joking. I have an article to say.
There's your dream.
It's hilarious. It's my dream. Yeah. That's how I'll retire. But if somebody finds one of these images and maybe like, it's kind of funny what they wrote in the text, but like, I could do better. I have a better idea than that. Just take it, reuse it, and then it's a hit.
Yep. And then a lot of times with songs, there'll be one smash hit. And then if you go back and listen to the CD, and it's like, well, 4 of these were just a shittier version of that one song that they finally nailed.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the third point that I hit was everything is extremely real. So everything has a consequence to it. And that just goes back to the bigger principle of having higher standards. You can't just draw something. You just can't put in a number. You just can't write a text. That doesn't have a ramification to it.
Not in this profession.
Not in this profession.
We can get in big trouble.
Yep. It's not in accounting, so many.
So many. There you go. Yeah.
Everything counts. So then I go, I hope you understand that, where those points are coming from, and that still your goal from now on is just to be brilliant from the basics. That's the only thing you have to think about.
Brilliant from the basics.
Agreed with everything. Thought it was great.
Yeah. Man, I was teetering on the edge of should we call this extreme ownership for this episode?
Yep.
Or should we call it now brilliant from the basics?
But be brilliant at the basics.
Be brilliant at the basics. Yeah.
Yeah. Or should we call it Jocko Podcast so people will type that in? I won't do that to you, Jocko.
I'm sure he's listening.
Yeah, for sure.
I think be brilliant at the basics. We'll see. All right, cool. That's awesome. Anything else?
That's all. Those were.
Here, I have one last question for you regarding the reviews. So I know we do we usually do a 90-day review, and we usually do a yearly review.
Yep.
Do you what's the trigger for you where you're like, yeah, I know we're like a week away or even maybe a month away from one of those two, and we're just like, now's the time. When would that change in your mind?
Well, I think you have to be within a couple of weeks, and we basically submitted one thing and we were moving on to like a huge submittal. So it was this valley point that I thought fits in right here because now everything that they make new. So if you're within 1 or 2 weeks and there's a good stopping point,
and then you have an opportunity to address all the things you're talking about on the next pass.
Yeah. And then I think that's becoming in tune with your people, because what if they start out this new project 2 weeks later, you give them this, and then they have an idea like, oh, brilliant at the basics. I could have formatted all my sheets this way, and it would have saved all the time, but now I can't go back because it's due in 2 weeks,
Yep.
all that stuff. So
there you go. All right, with that, I would like to, I'm going to introduce our best and worst advice segment. This week we have Paul Rugaber, and he is, I'm going to read off exactly who he is for people who don't know. So he is the principal and owner of PDR Designs, and he's a registered architect in New Jersey and in New York, and a member of the AIA Institute of Architects, a member of NCARB. Paul started his own design build firm while in college, designing and building tree forts / playhouses for clients. His passion, knowledge, and client base has grown over the years through word-of-mouth referrals, and he believes that his clients are his greatest assets and taking care of them through the years. He's also a member of, over at the Entree Architect community. So I know Paul through the Entree Architect community. I always see him posting stuff. He's kind of a motivational speaker, and he puts out these really cool videos. He just talks about how to cook things, how to be positive. He's just like a very super positive person. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But he's part of he's one of the facilitators for Mark's small term mastermind group. So if you haven't heard about Paul, honestly, and if you're on Facebook, I would follow him on Twitter, Instagram, because he always sends out at least one message a day in a video that is super good to hear and positive. So with that, we're going to hear what he has to say.
Hey Alex and Lance, Paul Rugaber with PDR Designs Architects. I own an architectural firm at the Jersey Shore, do a lot of residential work, do some commercial work. So you had asked the question, what is the best advice, what is the worst advice that I've received? So the best advice I'm going to say is not something that I've heard or received myself, but it's something that I've observed. So I had taken a Dale Carnegie course, and then I had gone back. They asked me to come back and do some coaching with them. And what I saw, what I learned there, is that people that are more timid are not going to succeed as much as people that are willing to put themselves out there and are willing to fail and are willing to try more things. So the best advice that I would give someone would be to be yourself and be what you want to be. Don't be what other people think you should be. Don't be what you're afraid to be, because most people are afraid to act the way they want to. They're afraid of what other people think about them, how they're going to judge them. They say, well, I can't do that because what do people think? What if I fail? What if they, laugh at my clothes? What if they would laugh at the way I talk? What if they laugh at my designs or my business idea? And so they don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to try something different because of those fears. But those people that are willing to be a little bit more bold, they're willing to fail and try and put themselves out there in front of others to be made fun of maybe if they fail, or to say whatever about them, those people that aren't afraid of that, or that can at least mask that fear and do it anyway, those are the people that are much more successful. And when you see someone talking in front of someone else, in front of a group there, and the people that are timid, stand there and their message isn't really heard very well. But those people that are willing to go up there and be bold and say, you know what, to hell with it, I don't care what other people think, I'm going to try something different, those people everyone loves. So the irony of it is that you're timid because you don't want to be judged, and yet the people that are most successful, the people that do the best, are the ones that go all out and are not afraid of other people judging them, and then they don't get that judgment. What they get is success. What they get is opportunities, and people say, wow, that was great, I love that. I could never do that though. They could never do it because they hold themselves back because they're afraid. So don't be afraid. Be yourself, be your true self, and if you want to be an architect, if you want to do whatever in life, go do it. But give it everything you have. Be passionate about it, love it. That's the best advice. Worst advice. I used to coach my son's ice hockey team, and I heard two dads talking, and the one guy was saying to the other that when his son grows up, he's hoping that he becomes a bus driver because it's a good, stable job and he'll be able to get benefits. I was thinking, holy shit, that advice sucks. Because not that being a bus driver is a bad thing. That's awesome. If you want to be a bus driver, then be a bus driver. But don't do it because that's the greatest aspiration someone has for you. And don't limit someone. Don't say, no, this is the best you can do. This is the best, all that you're going to be in your life is a bus driver. You should do things because you want to do it and because that's your ultimate goal. And by striving for better goals, by trying to do anything that you want, you're going to be much more successful, and you're going to learn things. I mean, we've all failed with a different client presentation technique, and it doesn't work. Or a different marketing technique, and it doesn't work. Or a different design idea, or whatever it is, different business idea, and it doesn't work. So rather than just giving up on it entirely, you tweak it, you make adjustments, and because business goes, circuitous. It doesn't go in a straight line of where you want to go to be successful. So you got to keep trying things and fail at it and adjust, and try and fail and adjust and adjust and adjust. That's the way that you're going to become much more successful. So don't ever tell someone that they can't do something, or say, hey, play it safe, just do this, because that way you're going to have a stable job. To hell with that. Do whatever it is that you want to do. Try for the moon, and then you never know where you're going to go, but try your hardest to do anything that you want. Learn from those failures. Don't be afraid to fail, and you're going to be able to be the best of you. You're going to enjoy your life so much more because you're willing to try something different. So the best advice, be yourself, be bold, and go for it. The worst advice, stay safe. Just do this, only make a couple bucks because, you can do this, and there's no risk of putting yourself out there. To hell with the risk. Take the risk. Do it. Because in the end, you're going to be much happier that you did. Just make sure you learn from it as you go. Be yourself, learn from things, enjoy it. That's the way to have the most success. Hope you guys enjoyed this.
And we're back. Al?
So I have two reactions. One, I just watched the first episode of The Defiant Ones on HBO, and it's about Dr. Dre and his producer. Even though Dr. Dre is a producer himself, Jimmy, I think it's Levine. And what was crazy about, so Jimmy, he's rich now, he's huge. If you watch this, just know that he's huge in the music industry. So he was working at, it was called the Record Factory in New Jersey, right? And he was just doing the tables where all the buttons are and all that stuff.
They're called turntables, Al.
No, but is it? Is it because it's not records? It's just like adjusting all the sound and all that. A sound table?
Mixing board.
Mixing board, yep.
Let me say it again in a really, really...
condescending.
It's a mixing board, Al.
And then, so he worked, for some great people out there just doing that. And then someone in California said, hey, come produce my album, right? Went out there. He said he wasn't ready. He didn't know enough. And they fired him. And he failed, right? And in his perspective, he moved from Jersey to California for a big rock star and then failed. So the circle of shame around him, he thinks is all encompassing, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes, because they're interviewing one of these older, he's like, don't think anyone cares enough about you to be concerned with what you're doing. So he goes back to Jersey, and no one knows. They just like, oh, you went over there and now you came back? Good, great. Oh, you failed? I don't care. I got my own life to live. This other producer, this other rock star singer is like, okay, I want you to produce mine. And he's like, well, I just went over there and I just failed. And it's just as huge as cloud. And they're like, I don't care. I saw you working here. I like what you do. You're going to go do this. And then bam. So your world is so huge and people only perceive little snippets of you. So while you're in that failure, it is your whole circle. And everyone else might come in and see a glimpse. Oh, they started a business and then failed? That sucks. On to whatever they were thinking about. Oh, I'm sorry, bud. I'm eating dinner now with my wife and kid.
Exactly. It's a snippet. If you can just get through those snippets
that no one cares about,
that nobody cares about, like the one. Gosh, I can't say how important that is. 100%, right?
Isn't that freeing? That no one cares about you?
Yes.
In that way?
Yeah. And if they do, screw them. I mean, in a certain level, like at the end of the day, if you've put yourself out there, you're trying to do your best, right? And you're trying to do the best. Like if you can just feel it in your heart and your bones, well, then what does it matter? And because one of the things I love that I have to reiterate over and over again that one of our friends and colleagues that we work with is Robert Wygant of Sumac says is like those who can't create critique. So like if you're a creator, if you're somebody out there who's an entrepreneur, a business owner, you're putting yourselves out there, you're doing something new, even an artist, you're gonna get critiqued by those who don't create, and that's kind of like the weird symbiotic relationship that there is.
Yep. And then if you are getting critiqued from, let's say, someone who cares, who isn't just there to criticize. So my impression is like, what if you failed at something, and then for some reason you're talking to Mark Cuban? He's like, oh, Well, you should have done this, this, and this, and this, right? And what you should know about the people that give that good advice, and it's not, one, the people above that critique, because that's what you might be afraid of. You aren't afraid of people below you critiquing. And I don't mean below you in any, but just like people that aren't doing stuff, just criticizing. They actually want you to succeed. So in their head, all they're saying is like, I got some information that can help you. Here you go, here you go. And then now I'm going to go do something else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So either way, from someone that's like way more successful in giving you a critique, don't be afraid of it, because honestly, they don't give a shit. They just want to help you out.
Yep.
Because they're already successful. Like, oh yeah, if you would have done this would have been great. It's not negative coming from them. If it's negative, it's coming from someone who's jealous, someone who's doing something like that. So either way, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. Shrug it off if you can.
Yep. The second thing, be your true self. And I'll just go back to the defiant ones. Now, Dr. Dre, everyone knows him as the artist Dr. Dre. And he wants to be behind the mixing board. And that's where he learned everything about mixing, everything about turntables, everything about the business and all that. And he'll get up on stage and he'll put himself out there. But he became a billionaire basically because he learned all those other stuff, because he understands that his true self, because everyone sees the rapper. And if you haven't watched this, you probably just think like, oh, I got to be the rapper, the one on stage, all that's big one. But, the big guy. Well, all these rich guys, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, Dr. Dre, they're the ones making the deals. They're the ones bringing the new artists in. They're the ones knowing. So, yes, go on that stage, but also know there's a backstage too. Mm-hmm. And that can be your true self, and that's where you can flourish too. You don't have to,
Yeah, yeah. I would go one step further. The way I take be yourself is I really take it to heart when Paul said, do what you want to be, or don't be what you're afraid to be. I just like. Because if you don't, I don't understand. You're holding yourself back. So like, if you are a little brash and you are kind of an asshole, but at the end of the day, like, you mean well, 90% of you means well. People are gonna take that little like, oh yeah, he comes off a little edgy, but like at the end of the day, he's a good guy, right? Mm-hmm. So like a lot of times you hear about like these comedians that go up there and like they're shock artists, right? Like Louis C.K. Like Louis C.K. says some crazy stuff on stage, but then you hear all these other comedians that go like, once you meet him, he's the nicest guy, because he gets all that stuff out on stage, and then that's 1% of his life.
What about redhead?
Bill Burr?
Yeah. Do they say he's the nicest guy ever?
I don't know, Billy Burr. Yeah. Maybe he is. I'd hang out with him.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. Last segment here is Alex's code questions. Yay! And if you've been following us, he is 1,000% like just always on point with these.
Exactly.
Yep, getting them right all the time. But before we do that, I just have one little quick shout out to give. So we got an email from a now listener, which is great. His name is their name is Sloan Springer. And they heard us on the Business of Architecture podcast over there with Enoch. So got this email and it said, hey, recently listened to your podcast with Enoch at Business of Architecture on the topic of sales. Many thanks for an insightful episode. It was particularly resonant with me as I am in the very early stages of creating my own business, and getting more work in the pipeline is priority number one. I noticed you mentioned using a couple sites for lead generation, if I heard correctly. Would be curious, So then I pointed Sloan to our podcast. I think it was episode 2020, which is the 3 V's of internet marketing. And then they replied back. So I just wanted to say thanks for sending the email in. And then I asked for Sloan to give us a review. So this is just a reminder to everybody, please give us a review if you can. If you're a listener, if you like the podcast, it helps us in the iTunes rankings.
You can do it right from your iPhone.
Yep. Whatever kind of review you were going to give us, just add 5 stars to that. Make that happen.
It's only going to give you 0, but you said add 5.
Exactly. So just add 5 stars and we're good with that. Okay. Here we go. Code question time.
Code question. B.
Ready to crush it?
Yep.
B. Yeah, that's his answer. Okay. All right. So we are in chapter 23 of the International Building Code. And the first question is from section 23085-3-2, top plates. Okay. So Al, we are type 5 architecture people all the time, right?
Yep.
So top plates. So you should know this. That's what I'm getting at. Top plates. Studs shall be capped with double top plates installed to provide overlapping at corners and at intersections with other partitions. end joints in double top plates shall be offset by at least how many inches? Okay?
So top plates, you're talking about the wood top plates.
So there's two top plates, right?
Yeah. I thought
the first one is a top plate,
Yep.
and the second one is a tie plate.
Yep.
Okay, so you need to, those splices can't line up.
Right.
So those splices need to be how
Offset.
far apart? Okay.
Okay. 24 inches.
Okay, is that your answer?
I don't know.
Okay, A, 24 inches, B, 36 inches, C, 48 inches, or D, 60 inches?
Is this, what is this stud spacing?
16 inches. Assume 16 inches.
Assume 16 inches.
Yep. I shouldn't even have gave you that because I'm trying to be ARE-like here. Come on.
Was 36 an answer?
36 was an answer.
I feel like it should be 36. And I'm going to say 36.
Wrong.
Oh, you gave me a smile. I was talking and you gave me this big grin like,
Well,
yeah.
That's what ARE. Doesn't the computer screen give you a smile when you Okay.
I was just,
The
I
correct
can't believe, you
answer-
should have saw his face.
I'm blown away.
I'm looking away and I look over and just the biggest grin ever. Just this head nod like, yeah.
What I'm blown away with is, so you preach, and so do I, but you've kind of been the leader on it, and it's good, is everything in 2 foot increments.
Yeah, that's what I initially...
So it's 48 inches.
Oh, it's 48 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I thought I thought that would be hard to accomplish.
48 inches or greater?
Yeah.
No. I think there's exceptions, right?
Well, think about, man, if you only have
so much wall.
exactly a 6 foot pop out, if you know.
Yeah, that might be. But if you have a 6 foot pop out, like you should just be able to get one piece. Then there you go. That problem solved. You just do, like your plates are the same length or something. I don't know. You tie them on the corners.
Yeah.
Anyway,
48. Well, that's good because it's easier to remember.
Know that when we're framing the duplex, okay?
Yep.
I mean the development project. All right. So Al, once again, continuing the streak. On to the next question.
Here's a question. I really want to look at that. I wonder if the code officials look at that. Because have you ever looked at that out in the field?
When I have framed myself, yes. But as a architect out there just like looking, no. I'm usually looking for bigger stuff than that. Like, did you guys miss a freaking column? Did you guys pour the foundation 8 inches too short?
Yep.
All right. Next question. 2308.5.9.
And just to let everyone know, I think these code questions are great just because it's knowledge. But the ARE is moving away from these little isolated things that you can look up to these bigger, complex questions that take...
Which we've kind of both agreed. That's reflecting practice.
Yeah.
Because you are making assumptions. Every time you're doing a tenant finish, you got to go into this existing building or who knows, any other kind of building where you're doing an addition that's commercial. You're going to make some assumptions about what kind of construction it is.
What is also weird, too, is that I know in none of our drawings, unless in our general notes. Do you think that's in our general notes?
Yes.
It is in our general notes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's in our structural general notes. But I'm not sure if it's in our architectural general notes.
Okay, because we hear from contractors sometimes like it wasn't on the drawings. I'm like, you can't draw what? You want me to draw out the studs and then draw a little graph that says 48 inches? You know what I mean?
Drawings are always a problem. Yeah. Right. Okay. 2308.5.9. Cutting and notching in exterior walls and bearing partitions. Any wood stud is permitted to be notched to a depth not exceeding what percent of its width?
Third.
Okay, that's your answer right off the bat.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to read them just for the listeners. A 10%, B 25%, C 33%, and D 50%. So Alex's answer is still
C 33%.
Wrong. It's 25%.
That's even.
So I'm gonna put this into just like, let's say you're out there with the tape. Okay. Yeah. Let's say it's a 2x6 wall.
A roof raptor. When you do the bird's mouth, you can do a third.
Yeah, but we're talking studs.
Yeah.
So if this is a 2x6, right, then the width is 1.5 inches. So times 25%, 3/8 of an inch. So you can't notch more than 3/8 of an inch. So that's the way I would think about it. Because I don't know, what other studs are that thick? They're a 4x4. There you go. Maybe that was a different, or 6x6 in a wall.
25%. Right. Nice.
25%. Okay, last one. 2308.5.10 board holes.
I think we should look at our notes and if the framing section. Put those two little suckers in there.
I mean,
And then because then also
these were some of the best one. Like these were some of the most just right to the point codes that I found in the
they
wood
said
section.
notch or what or a hole. Because isn't there like
Well, no. Holes are so they said notch for the last question.
Yep.
Now we're on to the holes.
Okay.
How big you could drill into a.
Because doesn't a hole have to be like a third away?
It has to be so. Like let's say you're doing a joist, like a floor joist, right?
No, stick to walls.
Oh,
So you're drilling through the vertical stud, and you put a hole in the center for electrical.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it where they do it too close.
yes,
Basically.
yes.
So I don't know the code, but a third is
Middle
in my
third
head.
is a pretty good rule of thumb.
Exactly. So in our drawings, if any of these are being broken, like they should be clear, because if they do that and then try to pull some crap on us or whatever, we'd be like, nope, it says right here, it should be in the middle third.
True. Okay, last one. Bored holes. A hole not greater in diameter of what % of the stud width is to be permitted to be bored in any wood stud? So it's again...
Third.
Okay, 1/3. That's what he says. A, 20%. B, 30%. C, 40%. D, 50%.
Wait, what are my options?
A, 20%. B, 30%. C, 40%. D, 50%.
This is for vertical, right?
Yep, studs. Yep. So what is the biggest diameter percentage of the width of the stud?
20%.
Incorrect. 40%.
40%. That's a lot.
40%. That is a lot. Yeah. So what would that be? What would that be quickly? Let me figure that out quickly. What that would be, just so everybody knows. On a 2x6 wall, 1.5 times 0.4, 0.6 inches. So like 9/16, something like that, right? And there you have it. Last thing I have, and then you wrap it up for us. Bestie Nick Renard, we're sorry, we're not on the ball with the readings. But Al has promised me.
I'm supposed to open up, find all my books that are in storage, take some on vacation with me, underline them, and send them to you.
Yep.
So other than that, thank you for listening. We appreciate the engagement. We appreciate all of you guys that are striving to make something better, not just for yourself, for who you're working for, who you're working with, your employees, your colleagues, and your family. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
See ya.